Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome back to Tech Conversations. I am your host Guillermo. It is April 30th. Let me know in the comment section below how you guys are doing today. As you can see, it is a green day for me, up $120 today, or about 0.1% so far. So we'll see what the rest of the day brings us. Now in today's video, I want to talk about a very rare strategy that we can implement to make some pretty big profits, and it's very highly profitable if you implement this strategy correctly. So I'll be showing you guys an example. Let me know in the comment section below what your favorite trading strategy is. Do you like buying options, selling options, credit spreads, debit spreads? What is your favorite type of option trading strategy? So the goal from the strategy that we're going to talk about here today is to take advantage of short-term implied volatility, where we believe that the underlying stock might make a move in either direction, but not such a huge move, okay? And we'll see here with the example that I show you what I'm talking about. And so the ideal scenario here will be to find a stock that has, for example, earnings coming up or a major announcement, anything that again might cause short-term volatility in the stock. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to use PayPal. So ticker symbol PYPL. Reason I'm going to use PayPal is because they do have earnings coming up next week. Now, again, this is just an example, guys. I have no idea how PayPal will react to earnings, what it's going to do. This is just an example, so please don't copy this. So we're going to go over to the options here for PayPal. So here we are with PayPal. And so, again, it has earnings coming up next week. Now, remember, earnings causes implied volatility to go up. Right? If we take a look here at next week's options, we'll see that implied volatility is going to be rather high on some of these options, right? So for example, this one, implied volatility almost at 60%. If you look at what PayPal's implied volatility normally is, it's a lot lower. So implied volatility goes up when earnings is coming up. So we don't want to buy these options, right? Because if we buy these options, we might get IV crushed. Remember, implied volatility tends to drop a lot after earnings is announced. And so that may cause us to lose money, even if the stock moves in the direction we wanted it to move. Instead, when there's high implied volatility, what we want to do is we want to be a seller of those options, because sellers, people who sell the options, they benefit from IV crush. And so we're going to want to sell instead here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all kind of choose a range where I think that PayPal will be when earnings comes up, or after earnings for next week. So let's say I think PayPal will be trading between 260, 265. That's the range I'm going to set. So those are going to be my endpoints here, and that's where I'm going to base this trade off of. So what I'm first going to do, like I mentioned, we're going to want to sell options here, and I'll explain what else we're going to do. So I'm going to sell the call at the higher end of my range, so at 265. So I'm going to sell a call here. So remember, when you sell an option, you're going to receive $8.03 for the premium here under the price. So you receive a premium. We're receiving $8.03 per share. There's 100 shares in each one of these contracts. So we're going to receive about $803. Now, the problem here is that in order to sell call options, we need to have 100 shares of a stock. Well, most people aren't going to have 100 shares of PayPal or whatever stock you're doing this on. So what we can do is we can mimic owning 100 shares of a stock. And we can do that by buying a call, right? Now, we're going to buy a call, but again, we don't want it for next week because, again, there's high implied volatility. We do not want to get IV crushed. There's also theta decay, which we'll talk about here in a second. So what we want to do is we actually want to go further out. So I'm going to go to May 28th. I'm going to buy a call here, and I'm going to choose the exact same strike price that I chose for the call that I sold. Now remember, if we do that, that's a long call calendar spread, and we've talked about calendar spreads in the past. I'll put a link to the video in the description below, but this is going to turn into a long call calendar spread. So now we can do this trade right here. This is going to cost us $312, but we're not done. I'm going to go back to the 7th. So we're selling a call. We're going to take advantage of the high implied volatility. Now what we also want to do is that we want to sell a put. We want to sell a put at the other end of the range that we determined where we think PayPal will be next May 7th here. So we chose that to be 260. I'm going to sell a put there. So again, for selling a put, we're receiving a premium. We're going to receive $6.90 per share, $690 for this contract here. But again, in order to sell a put, you need to have enough money to potentially buy 100 shares at that strike price. We need to have $26,000 to put up as collateral. A lot of people aren't going to have that. So again, what we can do is that we can substitute for having that much collateral by buying a put instead, right? So we can go buy a put, and this will be our substitute for that. And again, we're going to choose the exact same strike as the put that we sold, which is that 260 strike. So it's going to cost us $9.90 per share, or about $990 for the contract. So if you can see what's going on here, this is basically a combination of the long call calendar spread and a long put calendar spread. So this is known as a double calendar spread. It's also a combination of a long strangle and a short strangle. If you're not familiar with what strangles are, I also have videos on that. But ultimately, remember, we're selling a put, we're selling a call, same expiration date here. And so that's going to be the short strangle. And then we're buying a call, buying a put, same expiration over here. That's going to be our long strangle. So it's a combination of a long strangle and a short strangle, or again, it's also a combination of a long call calendar spread and a long put calendar spread. But again, this is known as the double calendar spread. And so our max risk will be defined here. It's going to be how much we're paying to enter this trade, which is about $615. Again, PayPal is, the price of PayPal is pretty high, so the cost will be a little bit higher as well. Our max reward profit will be a little bit harder to define because there's a lot of different scenarios that can happen when your short options expire, for example, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But with that being said, let's actually jump on over to the options profit calculator. Let's take a look at how this trade would actually look like. So I'm going to go to custom, and I'm going to go to 4 legs here. And then I'm going to, of course, do the exact same trade that we just set up. So again, we'll do PayPal here. So that should be PYPL, and we'll get the price here, okay? So let's start off by doing the call, our long call calendar spread first, setting that up. So again, we bought the option expiring May 7th with a 265 strike, which is down here. It's going to cost about, we're selling this one. So let me change this to right here. So we're selling this. We're going to receive about $790. And then we're buying the exact same option, bought at a further out expiration. So May 28th. Again, calls are on the left, puts are on the right. So be careful of that. So this one right here. Right, so that, again, that alone right there is going to be a long call calendar spread. Then we combine this with a long put calendar spread. So we're going to go ahead and sell or write or put. So again, we chose May 7th, puts are on the right. And then we chose the 260 strike, which is right here. So we're going to receive about $703 for that. And then we're buying the exact same put option. But again, this was for May 28th instead. And so that's the 260 strike. So right there, right? And so again, this is the long, or this is the double calendar spread. For the stock price range, I'll put 230 to 290, and then we'll calculate this. So this is what this trade will look like here. So again, our entry cost, that's how much we're paying, is about $605. That should also be your max risk. I'm not sure why the options profit calculator shows you something different. What you're paying is the most you should be losing here potentially. Again, your max return will be a little bit difficult to determine, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But remember, what's happening here is that we're selling options that expire a lot earlier than the options that we're buying. So there's 2 benefits to that. Again, number one, we're taking advantage that these options expiring earlier, the ones we're selling, have higher implied volatility because of earnings. Second of all, remember, we're also benefiting from theta decay because remember, theta decay gets higher the closer we get to expiration. And so since the options that we're selling are closer to expiration, theta on those are a lot higher. So even though we're affected negatively by theta decay on the options that we're buying, the theta decay that we're getting from options that we're selling is a lot higher. So we're actually benefiting from theta decay here. But if we take a look here, let's see what's going on. So ultimately, the optimal outcome here is for the short options to expire with the stock price right on the strikes or as close to them as possible. So that's why if we take a look here, max return at 265, right? That's the strike that we chose here. Also, it'll be very close to the same at 260. So at 260, because you can see here is 1,137. So on expiration for the short options, we want the stock price to be on the strikes that we of the options that we sold, or as close to them as possible. If we get the further we get away from them, the less money we are making, right? So the further we get from 265 up here, the less we're making. Similarly, the farther away we get away from 260 down here, the less that we're gonna make, and then eventually we start to lose money. Now, the other thing, of course, is what happens after the short options expire. So this is only showing you once the short options expire. So after they expire, there's a couple of things you can do. So after they expire, remember, you're going to be left with a long strangle. If you understand how a long strangle works, you can either, again, keep it if the circumstances are correct, if the situation makes sense, or what most people do, in my opinion, is that they just close out the entire position. At that point, you just take your profits, you close out the entire position. Or something else people like to do is that they sell options for the following week. So you would do the same thing. You would sell a put, sell a call for the following week, exact same strike, but again, just for the next week for both of these. But again, it really depends on what makes sense, what your situation is. So that's what you do after your short options expire. Again, I think most people just like to close out the entire position right before this expiration and just take their profits. The other thing, of course, is assignment risk. Anytime you sell options, there is a risk of assignment. And in particular, what I want to talk about is early assignment. That's generally due to the ex-dividend date. If a stock has a dividend, it'll have an ex-dividend date. If you're selling options on the week that the ex-dividend date is, you may be early assigned. So either avoid selling options on that week or close out 2 days prior to the ex-dividend date to just have to, just to avoid being early assigned, guys. The other thing, of course, is this is a very advanced trading strategy, so make sure that you're very familiar with how options work. I also would recommend first trying out the regular calendar spread, so either a long call calendar spread or a long put calendar spread on its own before trying the double calendar spread here. But again, as you can see, pretty high chance of profitability here, pretty huge range here, as long as, again, you're doing everything correctly. But if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. Check out the Discord, link to it in the description below. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys next time.